Well, good morning, guys. Officially, the talks are underway here in Islamabad between the U.S. side and the Iranian side. The U.S. side, of course, represented by Vice President J.D. Vance, and perhaps a little gunboat diplomacy, or in this case, guided missile destroyer diplomacy. Axios reporting a pair of guided missile destroyers has transited the Strait of Hormuz, likely to get Iran's attention, certainly after President Trump demanding repeatedly that the Strait of Hormuz be open. Vice President Vance landed here in Islamabad about 6 hours ago. One of his first meetings was with Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif. The president's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, and Jared Kushner are also part of the delegation. Before landing, Air Force Two arrived here in Islamabad under Pakistani F-16 fighter escort, jets sold to Pakistan by the United States. And leading the Iranian delegation, the Speaker of Iran's parliament, Iran's top diplomat, is also here. Here's President Trump on what he hopes to achieve with the talks being held for the first time since the war started.
What would a good deal look like for you?
No nuclear weapon. Number one. You know, I think it's already been regime change, but we never had that as a criteria. No nuclear weapon. That's 99% of it.
Strait of Hormuz as well?
Yeah, but that'll open up automatically. The answer is yes, but the strait will open up.
So perhaps those guided missile destroyers will go a long way to opening up the Strait of Hormuz that the president wants to see happen. And a lot of the Iranian delegation is happy to see the vice president here. They think the talks with Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner did not go well before the war in the two separate sets of talks. Some officials I've spoken to, guys, say if Iran's going to be collecting tolls in the Strait of Hormuz, the U.S. Navy should be doing the same thing, stopping Iranian warships and collecting tolls as a way to settle this, but certainly sending those ships through. Some officials think that dealing with Iran is like dealing with the devil, and think this war will not end until Karg Island is seized. Guys?
All right, Lucas Tomlinson, live for us in Islamabad. A lot of good things there. Lucas, thank you. In adding to Lucas's reporting, just moments ago, President Trump on Truth Social saying, in part, we're now starting the process of clearing out the Strait of Hormuz as a favor to countries all over the world, including China, Japan, South Korea, France, Germany, and many others. Kayleigh, let's go back to you. Where do you see this going?
I see this as a shame unless our NATO allies are stepping up and helping out. We had this discussion earlier in the week on outnumbered. I mean, President Trump, I'll tell you this. We all saw that contentious meeting with Zelensky that was in front of cameras, and everyone was like, shock and awe, whoa. They are much harsher meetings behind the scenes with some of our allies even. And I've seen some of these meetings. And when I saw that the cameras did not go in there with NATO, Rutte, the head of NATO, I knew President Trump was putting pressure on. So to see this tweet this morning and no indication that NATO allies are stepping up, what a shame. What an absolute shame.
Kayleigh, do you think the Iranians are sincere in wanting to negotiate, or is this just a delay tactic? How do you read this?
Yeah, international diplomacy is messy. It's hard. It's difficult. There are ups and downs. It is not clean. But the added factor that makes this tougher, to your exact point, Lisa, is this is a terrorist, fanatical regime motivated by religious extremism. That being said, I can tell you this, they didn't respect Obama, the pallets of cash, the weak deal. Right. They didn't respect Joe Biden when they saw what happened at the Abbey Gate and the withdrawal from Afghanistan. Trump took out their Ayatollah. So if any president in the last 47 years has a shot at dealing with the religious fanatics, it is this one.
And of course, he's also decimated their nuclear capabilities, which was the initial, that has been the focus. That is the goal. And obviously, and he said many times, you know, if regime change is a tactic that is used as part of this, that's ancillary, that's great, but that's not the focus of this. The focus of this is to eliminate their ability to get nuclear weapons, which everybody in the world agrees would be a terrible thing, and then to do it while keeping the Strait of Hormuz open.
Yes, and, you know, people might not understand this, but I think if you study international relations, you will. When you look at someone like Kim Jong-un, he is someone who, yes, he is crazy in all of his ways. He's a horrible dictator, but he is rational in the sense of he is motivated by self-preservation. He has nuclear weapons. We don't want him to have them, but he's never going to fire it at the United States because he cares about his own life. Right. I am not certain that the Iranian regime does, and that is why this is the most dangerous threat to the world.
It's a great point because North Korea is a hermit kingdom. But in the case of Iran, and particularly with Iran's neighbors, Saudi Arabia, UAE, the Gulf states, they are a major player. And so the thought of having nuclear missiles is very more significant than North Korea. But let me ask you this, because I got to get this in. Democrats are already saying that this is a failure, that President Trump's caused this debacle. It's a quagmire already. In the media, now you're seeing as Vice President Vance goes on perhaps the most important trip for the most important meeting of his life so far, the stakes couldn't be higher. You're seeing some in the media saying that Iran's got the upper hand. And I said, wait a second. Hold on for Iran has no navy. Iran has no air defense capabilities. As Charlie points out, Iran's nuclear program has been decimated, and the missile program also cannot restart because we bombed all the factories, 90% of them. And President Trump has compelled the few remaining people left, because most of their leadership is gone, with the exception of Iran's parliament speaker, Gallup, which seems to be in the driver's seat. Why is the perception not honest?
It's not honest because you have some in the media carrying Iranian talking points. I mean, that is the sad, sad truth. Literally at times quoting Iranian propaganda. But to your point, Iran has been decimated. There's still work to do. There is uranium there. There's no doubt about that. But nevertheless, they're in a weaker position than they ever have been. And you have J.D. Vance there. I love that because I like competing voices. There's been reporting that, he's been of a different, persuasion when it comes to this war. I think that's great to have competing philosophies there. I can tell you this, Jared Kushner, I've worked with him behind the scenes. I've seen how he operates. He is so smart. He'll sit there quietly and then comes in with the right thing to say at the right moment. And by the way, for those who say this is impossible, they said it was impossible to get the hostages out of Gaza. They got them out. They said it was impossible to get a ceasefire. They made it happen. It was impossible to get Maduro on U.S. soil. They made it happen. So the impossible becoming possible has been the story of Trump, too.
And the conflicting voices within the administration has been sort of a heckle by the left against. No, that is actually the great gift of President Trump. He surrounds himself by competing voices, listens to all of them, and then makes decisions on his own.
Yeah, and let me be clear. This may go poorly today. They may have to walk out of the room. But remember, it's about the long game. Sometimes you walk away from the negotiating table, you don't get what you want, you come back, and then you get more.
Well, it's also important to point out what Steve Witkoff said at the beginning of all this, that the Iranians were bragging about potentially having up to 11 warheads, that nuclear warheads that could potentially be online within days to a week. So that's the why of why this started to begin with. Also, one thing I'm wondering is you look at the Iranian side of the negotiations here. Lucas Tomlinson earlier said that they might be a little bit more pragmatic than some of the other leaders. So I wonder, in taking out many of Iran's leaders, have we strategically kept the ones that could potentially make peace and negotiate in these deals? I mean, you look at even like the Israeli pager operation, the Maduro raid that you pointed out, Kayleigh, and even rescuing behind enemy lines, extracting those two airmen, and just how complex and strategic that has been. So I just wonder if we've intentionally kept some of the Iranian leaders that maybe we could negotiate with. We'll see.
Yeah, it's a great question, but I can tell you the negotiators should not walk in today and do what their predecessors, many of whom have been slaughtered, did, which is walk in and say, hey, world's hegemonic power, we have enough uranium to make all these nuclear weapons and we intend to do it. And then their Ayatollah was gone within hours. Really.
Well, I think that's a good point, Kate.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.